Close your eyes and let the weight of the day begin to fade. Tonight I'll take you on a journey. Not just any journey, but the voyage of a man who lost everything and in losing it, discovered a path that would echo across centuries. This is the story of Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, a story of storms, shipwreck, and rebirth, a story that may in its own way guide you into a calmer, deeper sleep tonight. Welcome to Still Within, where ancient wisdom whispers into the present moment. If you find comfort here, let this be a place you return to, night after night. Picture the Mediterranean Sea more than 2,000 years ago. The water is dark but alive, stirred by gentle winds that carry the scent of salt and pine. On the deck of a merchant ship stands a man in his late 20s. His name is Zeno, the son of a wealthy merchant family in Citium, a small but bustling city on the island of Cyprus. His ship is loaded with precious cargo, purple dye made from rare sea snails, a luxury worth more than gold. His fortune, his family's hopes, his entire future sails with him. The night is calm. The stars above spread like a map of fire, guiding sailors across the endless waters. Zeno leans on the railing, his eyes fixed on the horizon. In his mind, he is not just a trader. He is a builder of destiny. The purple dye he carries is a symbol of wealth and power across the Mediterranean. Kings and emperors wear robes dipped in its deep color. To Zeno, this voyage is not just about business, it is a passage into greatness. But life often changes course in a single night. And the sea, beautiful and vast, can turn cruel without warning. Imagine it. The wind begins to rise. At first, it's only a whisper, playful, teasing the sails. Then it grows into a growl. The sky darkens, clouds swallowing the stars one by one. The sailors shout orders, their voices sharp against the crash of waves. Lanterns swing wildly, casting frantic shadows on the deck. Zeno grips the wood, his heartbeat racing with the storm. Rain lashes his face. The ship groans under the force of the sea. Waves rise higher than walls, slamming into the hull, spilling icy water across the deck. The precious cargo, his family's wealth, his fortune, his dreams, threatens to slip away into the black depths. The sailors strain against ropes, pulling at sails that whip like wild beasts. And in that chaos, Zeno feels something deeper than fear. He feels the fragile edge of control shatter. Everything he thought he owned, everything he believed was certain, trembles before the storm's fury. Then comes the breaking point. A scream of timber as the ship collides with unseen rocks. The hull splits open, water surges in. The cargo, his purple dye, vanishes into the sea, staining the waters as if mocking his ambition. Men leap into the waves, clinging to whatever floats. Zeno is thrown into the cold embrace of the sea, his body battered, lungs burning as he fights to rise. When he finally claws his way to shore, gasping, shivering, stripped of everything, the world is silent again. Behind him, pieces of the ship drift like broken memories. Before him lies an unknown coast. He has no fortune, no family, no purpose. Only himself, alone, soaked, trembling, and alive. For most men, this would be an ending. For Zeno, though he did not yet know it, it was the beginning of a philosophy that would teach generations how to endure storms far greater than the sea. Tonight, as you lie in your bed safe and warm, let this opening chapter settle into you. Life, like the sea, is unpredictable. The things we cling to most tightly can vanish in a single wave. And yet within that loss may hide a doorway we cannot yet see. Breathe slowly. In through your nose, hold gently, and release through your mouth. With every breath, imagine the storm quieting, the waves retreating, the stars returning to the sky. You too are like Zeno, standing at the edge of something new, carried forward by life even when control slips away. This is the calm before the true journey begins, and we will walk it together. The shoreline was quiet, but Zeno's heart was still a storm. He sat on the wet sand, his body trembling from exhaustion, his chest heavy with the rhythm of survival. Behind him, the sea had claimed everything: his ship, his fortune, the cargo that had been his future. All that remained were broken fragments of wood drifting like ghosts. He looked at his hands. Just hours before, they had touched the polished rail of a merchant vessel bound for glory. Now they were scratched and raw, empty and trembling. It felt as though fate had stripped him bare, leaving nothing but his breath and the beating of his heart. For a long time, he simply stared at the horizon. The night sky was clearing again, as if mocking him. Stars shone with indifference, scattered jewels across an endless dark. The same stars that had guided his journey now looked down upon him, as though he were no more than a shadow, a nameless figure among countless lives that rose and fell against time. When dawn came, The sun painted the waves in soft gold, revealing more of the wreck. Splintered beams, shattered crates, and pieces of the purple dye floated like stains on the surface. The dye spread in strange shapes, blooming in the water before dissolving into nothingness. Zeno watched in silence, and in that sight, he felt the truth pierce him. Everything he had valued could vanish in a breath. He wandered inland, weak, with no clear destination. His clothes clung to him, heavy with salt. Each step seemed to echo the question that pressed into his soul. Who am I now that everything is gone? For days he drifted like a ghost among strangers. The bustling towns of Greece were alive with traders, philosophers, artisans, and beggars. Yet Zeno moved through them unnoticed, carrying an emptiness heavier than any cargo. He had no wealth to trade, no home to return to. He was a man unmoored, as lost on land as he had been at sea. But there was also a quiet beneath his despair. At night, lying on rough stone under a foreign sky, he felt something stirring. Not hope, not yet, but the beginning of a question. If the sea could take everything, then perhaps nothing external was truly his. Perhaps life itself was asking him to find something deeper, something no storm could wash away. In one of those wandering days, Zeno stumbled into Athens, the beating heart of philosophy. The city was alive with noise, markets spilling with goods, voices debating in the agora, children running across narrow streets. It was overwhelming for a man stripped of fortune. Yet it was here, in this city of thought, that his shipwreck would finally reveal its hidden purpose. Zeno found himself drawn to a small bookshop. Dust motes floated in the light that slipped through the windows. Scrolls lined the shelves, holding words that had outlived kings. With nothing to lose, he picked one up. It spoke of Socrates, the man who had faced death with calm, who had lived by reason rather than desire. As Zeno read, the noise of the world seemed to fade. The words sank into him like water into dry earth. In that quiet, Zeno realized the shipwreck had not ended his journey. It had carried him to the very shore where he was meant to begin. Tonight, as you rest, imagine that moment. The silence after chaos. The strange sense that even loss has a shape, a direction, a hidden gift. Like Zeno, you may carry scars, disappointments, or moments when everything seemed to collapse. But within those wreckages, there is often a seed. Not visible at first, not easy to accept, but waiting to grow. Breathe in deeply now. Hold it for a moment. Let it go slowly, as though you are releasing something heavy into the sea. Imagine the tide carrying it away, leaving you lighter, emptier, yet more open to what may come next. Zeno's story was far from over. From the broken remains of one life, he would step into another, one that would shape the way we think about resilience, calm, and strength for centuries. The storm had taken everything, and yet by taking it had given, Athens opened itself to Zeno like a vast, breathing book. The marble columns gleamed in the morning sun, streets pulsed with merchants calling out their goods, and philosophers gathered under shaded porticos, debating in voices that carried like music. The city was alive, not with wealth or ships, but with ideas. For a man who had lost everything, there was a strange comfort here, because Athens cared less for what you owned and more for how you thought. Still, Zeno entered as a stranger. His clothes bore the marks of travel. His body carried the weariness of wandering, and yet something in his eyes was awake, searching. He was no longer a merchant. He was something else, though he did not yet know what. One afternoon, still restless, he stepped into a modest bookshop near the agora. The scent of papyrus and ink filled the air, thick and comforting. Scrolls lined the walls, their edges curled with time. He picked one at random and began to read. The words struck him immediately. Stories of Socrates, the philosopher who had lived with simplicity, who had stood before death without fear, who had questioned everything yet clung to truth as if it were breath itself. Zeno read as though he were starving. Each phrase fed him, not with gold or bread, but with something deeper, meaning. He read of Socrates standing trial, calmly refusing to flee when offered the chance, accepting his fate with a serenity that no storm could shatter. For Zeno, it was like finding a lighthouse after being lost at sea. The shopkeeper, noticing his intensity, smiled and asked where he came from. Zeno told him of the shipwreck, of how he had lost everything. The man nodded knowingly and said, "If you wish to hear more of men like Socrates, walk into the Stoa Poikile." You will find philosophers there, speaking not of wealth but of wisdom. And so, guided by loss, Zeno's steps carried him to the painted porch, the Stoa Poikile, a colonnade where great teachers gathered. He listened at first quietly to their words on virtue, courage, and the nature of control. Slowly, the emptiness within him began to fill, not with possessions but with clarity. Imagine him now, standing in the shade of marble columns surrounded by voices that questioned life itself. He no longer mourned the dye that stained the sea, nor the fortune scattered across waves. Instead, he began to see a new kind of wealth, an inner treasure that no thief, no storm, no empire could take. For nights, he returned to the Stoa, his curiosity pulling him deeper. He studied with Crates the cynic, who taught him to live simply, free from the chains of excess. He absorbed the lessons of philosophers who believed happiness was not in what you had, but in how you faced what life gave. Slowly, the broken pieces of his past shaped themselves into something new. The merchant who once measured life in cargo and coin now measured it in virtue, reason, and calm. And perhaps this is why we still tell Zeno's story today. Not because he was rich, not because he lost a fortune, but because he turned loss into strength. From Shipwreck, he built a philosophy that has guided souls for over 2,000 years. As you listen tonight, consider this. You too have wreckages behind you. Maybe they are not ships, but relationships, ambitions, or dreams you once thought would define you. And yet here you are, still breathing, still moving forward. Like Zeno, you may find that the collapse of one path is the quiet beginning of another. Breathe in slowly. Hold for a moment. Exhale gently. Let your breath be like the tide, steady, cleansing, carrying away what no longer belongs to you. And if these ancient whispers bring you calm tonight, if you find yourself drawn to journeys like Zeno's, I invite you to stay with us. Subscribe to Still Within, not as a transaction, but as a quiet promise to return to this space where wisdom meets rest, where stories of strength help carry you into peace. Because like Zeno, we are all searching, and sometimes the story we hear at night is the very compass that guides us in the morning. The days in Athens began to form a rhythm, like gentle waves that no longer threatened to drown him but instead carried him forward. Zeno, once the wealthy merchant stripped bare by the sea, now lived with far less than he ever had before. Yet strangely, he felt more alive. He had lost a fortune, but in its place he was gaining something far greater, a map for the soul. He sought teachers wherever wisdom could be found. His first was Crates the cynic, known across the city for his sharp tongue and his disdain for wealth. Crates lived with almost nothing, often joking that fortune was a burden disguised as blessing. He walked the streets in a simple cloak, mocking pretense and showing that a man with nothing could still be free. Zeno followed him, unsure at first. He had been raised in comfort, surrounded by trade, fabrics, dyes, and coin. To suddenly watch a man throw coins into the street and laugh at those who scrambled for them was both shocking and strangely liberating. Crates pressed Zeno to shed his pride. "You lost your possessions in the sea," he said. "Now lose the chains they tied around your mind." Those words sank deep. The shipwreck had already torn away Zeno's wealth, but Crates was teaching him how to let go of the longing for it as well. Poverty, Zeno began to realize, was not misery if it was chosen in strength. It was merely freedom in disguise. He also studied with Stilpo, a master of logic. Stilpo's mind was like a blade, precise, cutting through confusion with calm reasoning. He challenged Zeno to think not only about what the world looked like, but what it truly was. Under his guidance, Zeno began to see that emotions could be examined, tamed and understood rather than left to sweep a man away like a storm at sea. From Polemo, he learned harmony, how to live in accordance with nature, to align one's soul with the rhythm of the universe. These teachers, different as they were, shaped him piece by piece. He was gathering fragments of wisdom the way a shipwrecked sailor gathers driftwood, not to rebuild what was lost, but to construct something entirely new. Time passed, and Athens began to feel less like a place of exile and more like the cradle of his rebirth. By day, the marketplace hummed with merchants calling out prices, the air rich with the smell of olives and smoke. By night, lamplight flickered on marble walls and voices carried across courtyards. Zeno walked among it all, no longer a stranger but a student of life itself. Yet studying was not enough. There grew within him a quiet fire, a desire to share what he was learning, not as lofty theory but as practical guidance. He wanted others to feel the strength that rises when one accepts fate without bitterness, when one chooses virtue above all else. One evening, his steps carried him to the Stoa Poikile, the painted porch. The colonnade stretched wide, its walls adorned with scenes of battles and heroes. It was a place where citizens gathered freely, where anyone could listen and anyone could speak. Zeno stood there watching the fading light paint long shadows between the columns. Something within him stirred. He began to talk. At first his voice was quiet, almost hesitant, but the words carried weight because they came from lived pain, from genuine reflection. Happiness, he said softly, does not come from possessions. Misery does not come from loss. The storm outside us matters less than the captaincy of the mind within. Passers-by paused. Merchants with tired shoulders, soldiers with scars, young men restless for meaning, all stopped to listen. There was no pomp in his delivery, no pretense. He spoke not as a master, but as one who had walked through ruin and discovered a compass pointing inward. Day after day, people returned. They stood beneath the painted walls of the porch, not for spectacle, but for the calm assurance that Zeno's words offered. His teaching grew not as a rigid doctrine, but as a shared search for how to live well, how to remain steady when fortune turned, how to hold dignity in both victory and defeat. What began as the thoughts of a shipwrecked stranger became the foundation of a philosophy we now call Stoicism. Not born in temples of marble, not whispered only to kings, but spoken openly where anyone could gather. The painted porch became more than a colonnade. It became a beacon for those weary of life's unpredictability. And in that porch, Zeno himself transformed. No longer a victim of the sea, he was now a navigator of the human soul. His teaching spoke of virtue as the only true good, of aligning with the natural order, of meeting fate with courage. They were not abstract puzzles. They were tools, meant for anyone struggling with the chaos of living. Centuries would pass. His words would echo in the meditations of emperors, in the lessons of freed slaves, in the whispered prayers of men and women who found themselves on the edge of despair. But it all began here, with a man who once lost everything in the Aegean and chose to see in that loss not the end, but the beginning. And perhaps as you lie here tonight listening, you too can see how storms that threaten to drown us may in time reveal new shores. That ruin is not always destruction, but sometimes the doorway to discovery. So breathe deeply now. In, hold, and out. Let the rhythm steady you, the way Zeno steadied his heart beneath the painted columns. You too can let go of what has been lost. You too can find peace in what remains. If this story has brought you a sense of calm, if you find strength in the thought that even from shipwrecks we can build new lives, then know this. You are part of a community that seeks stillness within. Here together we honor the wisdom of the past to bring quiet to our nights. And just as Zeno once began again, so too can you. Tonight, as sleep drifts in, let this be the birth of a new life within you. Zeno's story is not only a fragment of history, it is also a mirror held up across centuries reflecting the storms that each of us endures. As you lie here tonight listening, you might find that his shipwreck echoes in your own experiences. Perhaps not waves and broken timbers, but challenges that felt just as overwhelming. Think back to a time when life pulled something away from you suddenly. Maybe it was a job you thought was secure. Maybe it was a friendship you thought would last forever. Maybe it was a dream you carried since youth, only to watch it dissolve in the harsh light of reality. Each of these moments is its own kind of wreckage. The details differ, but the feeling is the same. A sudden silence after the crash, the disorienting question of what comes next. It is in those moments that Zeno's lesson lives. He discovered that the true danger was not the storm itself, but despair, the surrender of the mind. When fortune abandoned him, he turned instead toward something no sea could claim: wisdom. And that choice transformed not only his life, but countless lives after him. Pause for a moment now. Breathe in slowly, hold, breathe out gently. Notice the way the air moves through you, steady and sure, a tide you can always return to. This breath is your anchor. Even when the world feels unsteady, this rhythm belongs to you. In your daily life, storms take many shapes. The email that carries bad news. The phone call that changes everything in a single sentence. The worry about tomorrow's bills, tomorrow's obligations, tomorrow's unknowns. These are the modern seas we sail, and though the sails may tear, though the waters may rise, you have within you what Zeno discovered. That calm is possible when we remember what truly matters. He learned that possessions, titles, and praise are fleeting. Virtue, clarity, and courage remain, and you listening now carry those same tools inside you. They do not vanish when fortune turns. They wait, steady like stars behind the clouds. If these words bring you a measure of peace, know that you are not drifting alone. Still Within was created as a gathering place, much like the painted porch where Zeno once spoke. Here we meet in quiet reflection, not as teacher and student, but as fellow travelers. If this story eases your mind, I invite you, gently without urgency, to support this space. Share it with someone who might need comfort. Subscribe, so that these nights of stillness may continue to find you when the world feels heavy. In doing so, you help keep the porch lit for others who may be walking through their own storms. Now return once more to your breath. Inhale, hold, exhale. Each cycle is a reminder that letting go is possible. Just as the tide releases the shore, you too can release the weight of this day. Imagine yourself standing in Athens long ago, among the crowd gathered at the Stoa Poikile. You feel the marble cool beneath your feet, hear the soft murmur of voices around you. Merchants, soldiers, wanderers, mothers with children, all gathered, each carrying unseen burdens. Zeno stands before you, not in grand robes, but in the simple cloak of a man who has lost much and found more. He does not promise riches or power. He offers only perspective, calm, and the reminder that storms shape us more than they destroy us. And in that gathering, you realize something profound. You are not alone in your struggle. The man beside you has his shipwreck. The woman behind you has hers. Every soul here has faced loss, yet all of you breathe the same air, listen to the same wisdom, and feel the same quiet strength rising. Carry that image with you, a porch open to all, a space where nothing is demanded of you but presence, a reminder that peace is not given by the world but cultivated within. Let yourself drift in this thought. The things taken from you are not the end of your story. They are the beginning of a new one. Just as the sea stripped Zeno of his wealth, only to deliver him to Athens where philosophy awaited, so too may your losses be the hidden doorway to something unseen. Perhaps tonight is the first step. Perhaps in this very moment, lying here, breathing slowly, you are beginning to see that what seemed like failure may yet become foundation. Release now what clings to you. Release the tight grip of regret. Release the worry for tomorrow. Let them slide from your shoulders like a heavy cloak you no longer need. Beneath it, you are lighter. Beneath it, you are free. You are not defined by what you own. You are not broken by what you lose. You are shaped by how you endure, how you steer the ship of your mind even as the waters rise. And so, like Zeno, you are capable of turning a wreck into wisdom, of turning despair into clarity, of turning an ending into a beginning. Breathe in once more. Hold. Breathe out slowly. You are safe. You are here, and the calm you seek is already within you.